All right, welcome back, everyone. This should be part 13 of our farming series. I'm very excited for today's episode. Let me quickly show you guys what we're going to be doing. So this is my reference. I've changed the inventory a little bit. So here's our new inventory. And now I can pick things up and it pops up in my inventory. And I can hover it and it shows the name and count. And this works with most of them. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is, as you might have been able to tell, I didn't like the. You know what? We'll add it, and then you can decide if you want to do that or not. So the first thing we're going to do is add a get grid container. This is going to contain all our inventory slots essentially, and then we're going to want to make the slots. So to make that, what I'm going to use is texture button. Realistically, you can use kind of anything, but there's a specific reason I use texture button, because later on we're going to want to be able to click that button and do something, hopefully. Now we'll put it in here in the UI. We'll save it, rename this to slot. I'm going to add a script to it, and then I'm going to go back into our slot, and I'm going to add, for now, I'm going to add a sprite. The sprite doesn't necessarily matter. However, later on, you will want the separate sprites of the corn and tomato. I've separated them outside of the basic plants. I will show you why and how we're going to use that. I'll upload this after I'm done recording. I'll upload the GitHub so you can find these files if you don't know how. But essentially, generally what I do is I use a program called Graphic Scale, and it's very good pixel art tool to use, and I just cut this out and make it its separate pixel or sprite. So in our slot, we're also going to go to texture. We're going to go to our inventory. We're going to use our free slot. Actually, no, we're going to use the inventory background. There we go. And then we're going to pop that in. And for our sprite, we're actually going to transform that to 0.75, and then 0.75, just to scale it down a little bit. I'm going to turn off the snap and make it fit, so that way it actually looks like it's in the inventory. I'm going to rename this to item, and I'm also going to make something. I'm going to add another label, and I'm going to name this to count. All right, and we're not going to do anything in this label yet, but we'll just leave it for now. In our slot, we're now going to go into here, and there's a few variables we're going to want to add. So the first one is going to be has item, and this is going to be false because originally there's nothing in there. We'll also have item icon. And we're also going to have item name, and we're also going to have item count. And this one's going to be default 0. This one's going to be defaulted to nothing as a string. And then this one, we're going to preload anything. It doesn't matter. It has to be a picture though. The picture that you preload originally doesn't matter. However, you do have to preload something, and I will show you why in a second. Another note to tell you guys, you can add anything else you want in here, any other variable that you would want your item to have. So for example, if it's a consumable, let's say it is a consumable, and it heals you a certain amount, you can do variable healed or amount healed or whatever you want. Some things I would do in my other games is I would do damage, right? If a weapon has a certain amount of damage, I would put it in there. If it has defense, I'd do defense, right? So I would put all the variables I want in this slot. All right, so next thing we're going to do is go back to our inventory, and now let's put the slot. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to rename this to slot container, because it is a grid container, but we're going to do slot container. And then we're going to actually keep this as column 1. That's okay. Actually, no, we'll do 6. We'll keep it to column 6. We'll add our slot, which is right here. You can just drag it in, and then we will duplicate this a few times. And as you can see, it's very small. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start at 0. Name this 1, drag that up. So 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. It doesn't really matter, but I just like to do that. As you can see, our slots are very small. So what we can do is go into our rect and just scale it. And so here's the problem I had an issue kind of merging the background, the actual texture. I didn't want to, I couldn't be bothered to ask, so I just ended up adding a panel instead. And what I did is I just made it look a little prettier by making a new style blocks, whatever the hell that is. And the color, I made it kind of like a grayish, not gray, like right around there. And then I made it slightly invisible. So self-modulate. I drag this down a little bit, and then I drag it out. I take this, put it in the background, and I drag our grid container. I also go into our panel. I'm also going to do the corner radius. I'm going to make it 15 for each. And so it kind of rounds it out a little bit. I'm actually going to modulate it a bit more. All right, there we go. So this is kind of what I do. If you want to draw your own inventory, that's fine. Or if you want to use the default inventories and try to make it fit inside of this, that's fine too. I just couldn't be asked to do that. I had a very hard time doing that. You can also use the inventory slot instead of the background, but either way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make too much of a difference. Let's drag this out to the side. We're going to use that later, or we'll kind of reference it later. All right, so now that we have a few slots, you can add more if you want. I added 18, so I have up to 0 to 17. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to have 6. I'm going to make the script for it. I'm going to delete all that. And in our script, we're going to have an array. And in our array, it's going to be onReady variable slot buttons equals an array. And in this array, we're going to get node slot 0. And then I'm going to take this and just copy paste it a few times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we should, oh no, there's just 5. Okay. When you add more slots, you would want to put them in here, which shouldn't take too much time, but that's it. Next thing we're going to do is in our slot, okay, we'll work in the slot container first. So in our slot, we're going to make a function called set inventory. And the reason why we're making a function and not doing like a function process or function ready is because we want this to happen every time I click E. So what we'll do is we'll actually take this, and in our inventory, every time I click E, right, inventory, every time I show our inventory, we're going to use our inventory. Right, so get node slot container set function. So that's how I get a node. I'm going to get this node. I'm going to go into this node and call this function set inventory, right? So that's how I call it function, but obviously there's nothing in this function yet. So let's fill it out. In our function, we're actually going to go into our label, which we had before. So this label over here, we're actually going to copy it. I'm going to take this and we're going to delete this label because I no longer need it. I'm going to go into our slot container. I'm going to copy what we had. And instead of changing text, what we're actually going to do is now we're going to edit the specific slot that we are accessing. So we do slot buttons dot at I dot has item equals true. And that should work. And so what we're doing is we're going to access the specific slot depending on which array we're in. So we go through our array of harvest. So we have our inventory, that's our inventory essentially, and we're going to go through it and check if we have corn. If we have corn, we're going to fill it with, we're going to fill a slot with that item, that specific item, right? So we're going to go into our slot, right? If we go into the script, I'm going to actually close all this, open the slot container and slot. So in our slot, we have a few variables that we want to fill, right? So if I'm going to take this, I'm just going to copy paste it 3 times. And I want to set each one of these, right? So let's just copy paste each one, item name and item count. All right, and a few of these might be easy. So for example, item count, it's pretty easy. Okay, well, let's do item name first. That one's really easy. That one's right there. So we just get the name of it. And then the item count is also pretty easy because if you recall, we have a variable called count in our harvest, right? It says count and consumable. You can add whatever else you want in there. All right, and then the icon, here's the fun part, is we're gonna load the icon. And to load the icon, we're going to have to load it by doing this. So this isn't what I usually do, but what I will do, in fact, actually what I'll do usually is I will take this path and I'll usually put it in here. So I'll have, in our dictionary, I'll have icon, and then I'll do this. But I'm not going to do that. In this case, either way works. This way it works fine. But essentially what we're doing is we're taking our item icon, which we preloaded right here, and we're going to load this new icon in, right? So that's how we load something. So we have load and load. So this is a pretty interesting, or it's a pretty useful function to use. It's not a function, it's a ability that Godot has, I suppose. And so this just takes a pre-existing preloaded icon and sets it as our loaded icon. And I think that is it. But now that we've set all this, now we have to show it somehow. So in our icon, we're going to go into our icon. In here, we have to be able to just show it somehow, right? So what we're going to do is in nothing, because we didn't make it yet, we're going to make a process function. And in here, we're going to check if item count is equal to 0. What we'll do is we'll just get node.item hide, and then we'll also, that's it. We'll get node.item count. Actually, yeah, we'll also hide the count, which is actually more important. So because there is something here, if our has item is false, which it should be always, then it'll just hide the item, right? But when I load something in, it'll make it true. So in our slot container, we have item equal true, and we make icon. We load the icon to our specific icon, and then we show it, right? We'll do that in a second. So next thing we're going to do is else. I'll just pass for now, actually. No, we're not going to pass. Sorry. We're going to show our count. So here we go. We take the count and we show it. And then we will also get node count dot text equals string item count. All right. And I think we should just be able to test it. So if we play and our game crashes for some reason, I'm going to just save and load. I'm not sure why I did that. Save and load. Here we go. In our inventory, there's nothing. But if I plant a corn and I harvest it, it shows me 1. So that's a bit weird. The reason why it's showing on this one is because there's actually a tomato in our array already, but it's not showing because I didn't set that yet, but that's okay. All right, so this is right, actually, because we haven't set the icon. We haven't shown the icon. We're hiding it right here, right? We have to be able to show it as well. Another thing we're going to do is we're actually going to our count. We're going to make this way smaller because it's really big right now. So we're going to go into rectangle. I'm going to scale it to 0.2. Let's have a number here so we can test it. Right there. Okay, that's a bit too small. I'll do 0.3. Okay. I think, let me just check what I had. Yeah, I have 0.3 in my reference. Okay, and we'll do that. Next thing we'll do is go back into our slot. And now let's show everything else. So if as item is equal to true, this is where we'll show the icon. So we'll get node dot item dot show. What else do we want to do? We want to also set the texture. So get node dot item texture equals to item icon, because we've loaded the icon into here, but we also have to load it again, essentially, into the icon here, so into the texture. So this is how I'm accessing the texture right here. Texture, if you hover it, okay. I believe, yeah. So if you, whenever you want to do something or edit something in any node, so this is a lesson. In any node, whenever you want to edit any sort of function variable, you can hover it, and it'll tell you how to access it. It'll say property h frames, right? If I want to do visibility, if I hover it, it'll say property visible, and it'll even give me like things I can do with it. If true, this canvas, whatever, and it gives me a little detail. Okay, so else if has item is false, what we'll do is we'll hide it just in case, just double check essentially. Yeah, just in case that this didn't happen. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to relaunch. I'm going to play, press E, there's nothing there. We'll load a corn, pick it up in a second. Now if I launch, there's our corn. I can't do anything with it, but it pops up. One last thing we're going to do in our slot container, we're going to now copy paste all this and then add tomato. I actually believe later on, if you have more items, I believe you should be able to just do this. Let's double check. Let's make sure. No, you can't. Okay, so this is actually why I will load this inside of our variable instead. So, okay, so for reference for you guys, if you guys want to continue on with this project, add several more items, the reason why it's better to load the icon inside of the variable, so if you have icon here, etc., the reason is because here, I now have to make a new matching statement every time I add a new item. So if tomato equals this, because of this line specifically, because of this, the load, right? So now I have to go into here and change it to tomato. So I'm basically taking the lazy route, is what I'm telling you. But it still works. So we have tomato. We're checking for tomato in our inventory. So now we'll have a tomato because we checked our inventory and it loaded it, right? So now if I get corn and press E, there it is. There's our corn. And just to double check the count works, we'll make another one. I'll pick it up. And there we go. Now we have 2. All right, so now let's make it a bit more interactive. So what I'm going to do is add a panel. I'm going to add a label to that panel, and I'm going to name our panel info. And I'm just going to make the label, I'm going to edit the label to size 0.25 and 0.25 for scale. And then our label, we will drag it up a little bit. We'll go to theme override, new style box, and we're just going to make it completely white. And then I'm going to go to corner radius, make it 15 for all over. I'm going to drag it up a little bit. And this is essentially our info box. This is where we'll have the information. And here we'll actually drag it in a little bit. And just to test it, we'll do item, name, and then count 0. And as you can see, I can't see anything. There's nothing there. So in our label, we go to theme override once again, go to colors, and just check that font color. So you can change the color to whatever you want. I'm going to do black. That's fine. Now, we're not going to play yet. Now, we can fill that up. So in order to do that, what we can do actually is in our slot, so in our actual button, we go to node. We can do mouse entered. And we'll also add mouse exited. All right. And then we'll also actually add, right away, we'll add a ready function, and we'll do get node info. What we'll actually do is we'll do get info dot hide. We'll take this, copy it to mouse exited, and then in our mouse entered, we're going to check if has item. No, actually, let's just skip that. We'll do get node and show. Get node info and show it. So sorry, show it. Then we'll also get info / label dot text, and we're going to set it equal to name Oh, I'm messing up my keyboard a lot today. Name plus string item name. Then we'll also go to the next line by doing this. Oops. And then plus count plus string item count. And I save it. And now if I load our game, we have our tomato. If I hover it, it'll pop that up. All right, and what I can do is I can actually just take our label and make it, our label and make it a bit longer. What I can actually do is I can go to our label. We can auto wrap it. Oops. And then we'll kind of edit our label to match it. There we go. So now it kind of fits. However, as you can see, it's doing this. And now I want you to figure out how to fix that. Well, I kind of gave it away, but I'm trying to give intentional bugs for a reason. So as you might have figured out, we just check if has item, and then we add that. So we only do that if we have item. So now there's an item in here. We can hover it and see, and then I can't do that for the rest. One thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drag this down just slightly. Yeah, there we go. So it looks a bit better. One thing I did off stream or off recording is I added a font. If you don't know how to do that, so I added a font. So find a font that you like, you put it in here, create a folder for it, whatever you want. Create a new resource, dynamic font. Okay, so if we search it up, dynamic font, create it, and then once you click it, you go into font, you load it, and then the way I was able to load it by default is you go into project settings, and you just search up font. You go into theme, you'll have the custom font, and this will be the font for the game by default. Any sort of font that you try to use, it'll use this, right? So you load it, and the project settings will prompt you to save and reload the game, the entire thing. So you just do that, and then that's it. All right, I believe that is actually it for our inventory. Let me just double check. Boop, boop, boop. All right, yeah, that's it for everything. One thing we can do, we can double check is, just so we avoid any errors, if slot buttons dot size is smaller than or equal to game dot harvests. Nope, that's not it. Harvests dot size. Then we can do all this. Oh, we have to, because this will eventually. What is happening here? Oh, okay. Ooh, not smaller than bigger. Right. Wait, let's reload it. There we go. Yeah, so this line will help us avoid an error where we have more items than inventory size. But obviously in our case, we don't have that. But we can actually test it. Yeah, I don't want to get too many errors, but let's try loading it. Let's remove all that and load it. Let's play. It still pops there, but hopefully this doesn't break our game. Yeah, okay. So that will avoid errors. There we go. It will first check to see if we have enough inventory slots to put it in. If we don't, then it's still in our inventory, but it won't load it into our game, which is good because we don't want to, if this wasn't here, it would error and crash. Okay, that kind of concludes our inventory. Next video, I'm not 100% sure what we're going to do. I will think of something and record it, and I will upload the video. But I think what we have is pretty good. Actually, one thing I'll do is I'll probably add prompts to make it more keyboard oriented. So we'll have it so that we can kind of go up to the plant or the dirt, click something, or something will come up and prompt us to actually click a button and plant it. So click like Z, for example, we plant something, plant, whatever, etc., etc. And then we instead of making it like so we hit it, then we have to actually pick it up or something like that. So I'll make it a bit more keyboard oriented. But this is pretty good. We have a pretty working game. Another thing I wanted to do, actually, real quick, last thing. In our player, I'm going to go to our player and I'm going to change the ifs here to elif. Elif. Here we go. And what this will do is only allow us to move in one direction at a time. So now it must animate, because as you could tell before, there was a little problem going in at an angle. It wouldn't animate at all. And the reason being because there is no angle for our state machine. There's a way to fix that, but I'm not going to cover that in this series. The series is more oriented towards the actual farming. But that is kind of it. I'm pretty happy with what we have. It's a bit laggy, but that's okay. Computer just sucks. Yeah, we can farm and we have a bunch of corn. Can't do anything with it yet, but maybe in one of the later episodes I can add something so that we can use it or something. But yeah, this is pretty cool. We have an inventory with E, and yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. If you guys like this series and everything, please subscribe. If you liked it, comment, etc., etc. Do all that good stuff. Comment, subscribe, like, share, and I will see you guys next time.